They say courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important. For Emma, that something else was a 7-year-old girl named Lily. In a split second, amidst the chaos of a drive-by shooting on a rainy Chicago afternoon, Emma made a choice that would rewrite her destiny. She threw her body over her student, taking a bullet meant for the daughter of the city's most dangerous man. She thought she was just saving a child. She didn't know she was saving the heir to an empire, or that the man who would walk into her hospital room wasn't just a grateful father, but a kingpin capable of burning the world down for those he loved. This is the story of how a single act of kindness sparked a war, and a love story written in blood. The rain in Chicago had a way of turning the city into a watercolor painting of grays and silvers. It was 3:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, the time of day when St. Jude's Academy transformed from a quiet fortress of learning into a chaotic symphony of idling luxury SUVs and parents checking their watches. Emma Bennett stood under the stone archway of the school's east exit, clutching her clipboard against her chest to shield it from the mist. At 26, Emma was the kind of teacher who memorized allergies, favorite colors, and fears. She wore practical beige cardigans and drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that rattled when it hit 40 miles per hour. Her life was quiet. It was safe. "Miss Bennett, look at my boots." Emma looked down, her face softening into a genuine smile. Lily Rossi, a quiet girl in the 2nd grade who usually kept to the back of the classroom, was stomping in a puddle near the curb. Lily was new this semester, a transfer student with sad eyes, and a chauffeur who looked more like a linebacker than a driver. "They're wonderful, Lily," Emma called out, stepping closer to usher the girl back toward the safety of the awning. "But let's keep them out of the street, okay? Your dad—" Emma paused. She had never met Lily's father. "Whoever is picking you up will be here soon." "Daddy said he's coming today," Lily said, her voice small but proud. "He promised." Emma checked her watch. Most of the other children had already been swept away into the warmth of their parents' cars. The street, usually bustling, felt strangely empty for a moment, save for a black delivery van idling 2 blocks down. "That's great, sweetie," Emma said, scanning the road. That was when the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a sound, but a vibration, the deep, guttural roar of an engine accelerating too fast. A matte black sedan swerved around the corner, ignoring the stop sign. It didn't slow down as it approached the school zone. It sped up. Emma's instincts, honed not by training, but by a primal urge to protect, flared hot in her chest. She looked at the car, then at the delivery van down the street, which suddenly slid its side door open. Metal glinted in the gloom. "Lily, get back!" Emma screamed, dropping her clipboard. The first shot sounded like a firecracker, sharp and confusing. It shattered the side mirror of a parked Lexus. The second shot took out the glass door of the school entrance behind them. Lily froze. The little girl stood paralyzed on the sidewalk, her pink boots glued to the pavement, staring wide-eyed at the black sedan barreling toward them. The window of the car rolled down, and the barrel of a submachine gun protruded, dark and terrifyingly real. Emma didn't think. She didn't calculate the odds. She simply moved. She lunged forward, tackling Lily with enough force to knock the breath out of the small girl. They hit the wet pavement hard, Emma wrapping her arms around Lily's head, curling her body into a human shield over the child. Pop, 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 pop. The sound was deafening. Concrete chips sprayed into Emma's hair. She felt a searing, white-hot heat tear through her left shoulder, followed by a dull, sickening thud against her ribs. "Stay down!" Emma gasped, her voice ragged. She pressed Lily's face into the wet asphalt, the smell of rain mixing with the metallic tang of blood and burnt rubber. Tires screeched as the black sedan peeled away, the shooters realizing they had missed their clean shot. Silence followed. A heavy, ringing silence that lasted for 3 seconds before the screaming started. Emma tried to push herself up, to check on Lily, but her left arm wouldn't cooperate. It hung uselessly at her side, a dead weight. A warm, sticky fluid was soaking through her beige cardigan, pooling onto the ground beneath them. "Miss Bennet?" Lily's voice was a terrified whimper from beneath Emma's chest. "You're bleeding." I'm okay," Emma lied, her vision swimming. The grey sky above seemed to be spinning. "Are you hurt? Did they get you?" "No," Lily sobbed. "You squished me." Emma let out a breathless, pained laugh that turned into a cough. "Good. That's good." Teachers were running out now. The school security guard was shouting into his radio. But Emma's world was narrowing down to a pinprick of light. She saw a pair of polished Italian leather shoes sprinting toward them across the wet pavement. Not running, sprinting with terrifying speed. A man fell to his knees beside them. He didn't look at Emma at first. His hands, large and shaking slightly, reached for Lily. "Principessa," the man breathed, his voice rough like gravel. "Lily, look at me." "Daddy!" Lily cried, scrambling out from under Emma's protective weight and burying her face in the man's coat. The man held her for a second, checking her frantically for wounds. When he realized she was unharmed, his gaze shifted to Emma. Emma blinked, trying to focus. The man was striking. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair slicked back from the rain, and eyes that were the color of a stormy sea. But it was the expression on his face that terrified her more than the gunshots. It was a look of pure, unadulterated fury, barely contained behind a mask of shock. This was Dominic Rossi. He looked at the blood pooling around Emma's shoulder. He looked at the way her body was still curled protectively toward where his daughter had been. "You," Dominic said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You covered her." "She's my student," Emma whispered, her consciousness fading fast. "Keep her safe." "Help!" Dominic roared, his head snapping up to the gathering crowd. The authority in his voice made the security guard freeze. "Get a medic, now." He turned back to Emma, his hands hovering over her wound, unsure if pressure would help or hurt. For a man who dealt in violence, he looked utterly lost in the face of this specific sacrifice. "Stay with me, Miss Bennet," Dominic commanded, reading the lanyard around her neck. "You do not get to die today. Do you hear me? You do not die." Emma tried to nod, but the darkness was too heavy. The last thing she felt was Dominic Rossi's hand, gripping her uninjured hand, an anchor in the storm, before the world went black. The smell of antiseptic was the first thing to return. It was sharp and clean, burning the back of her throat. Emma blinked her eyes open. The ceiling was white. The sheets were stiff. A steady beep, beep, beep monitored the rhythm of her heart. She wasn't in a normal hospital room. This room was larger than her apartment. There were fresh lilies, dozens of vases of them, covering every available surface. She tried to move, and a sharp pain radiated through her left shoulder. She gasped. "Careful," a deep voice said from the corner. Emma turned her head. Sitting in a leather armchair that looked completely out of place in a hospital was the man from the school. Dominic. He had shed the soaked trench coat, revealing a tailored black suit that cost more than Emma made in a year. He looked exhausted, a shadow of stubble on his jaw, but his eyes were alert, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Where is Lily?" Emma asked, her voice raspy. "Safe," Dominic said. He stood up and walked to the side of her bed. He moved with the grace of a predator, silent and controlled. She is at home, under guard. She hasn't stopped asking about you. I'm glad, Emma breathed, relaxing back into the pillows. What happened? The police. The police have taken your statement while you were unconscious, Dominic said dismissively. They believe it was a gang initiation gone wrong. Random violence. Emma frowned. It didn't feel random. They aimed right at us. At Lily. Dominic's jaw tightened. A muscle feathered in his cheek. You are observant. I'm a teacher. I have to be, Emma said. She looked at him, really looked at him. Who are you, Mr. Rossi? Fathers of second graders don't usually have security details that carry military-grade first aid kits, and people don't shoot at 7-year-olds for initiation. Dominic rested his hands on the footboard of the bed. He didn't lie to her. Perhaps it was because she had saved his daughter, or perhaps he knew she was too smart to buy it. My name is Dominic Rossi, he said, and in this city, that name carries a weight that almost crushed my daughter yesterday. Emma's breath hitched. She knew the name. Everyone in Chicago knew the name, though usually it was whispered in hushed tones in the back of bars or shouted in angry headlines about organized crime investigations that mysteriously fell apart due to lack of evidence. You're the Rossi family, Emma whispered. I am, he confirmed. His eyes locked onto hers, searching for fear. And you are the woman who took a bullet for my child. The doctors said the bullet missed your subclavian artery by 2 millimeters. You almost died, Emma. I saw a gun, Emma said simply. I saw a child. I didn't think about who her father was. Dominic stared at her for a long moment. He was used to people wanting things from him. Money, power, protection. He was used to fear. He wasn't used to this selfless bravery from a civilian. You have a debt owed to you, Dominic said, his voice solemn. A life debt. The Rossis do not leave debts unpaid. I don't want your money, Emma said quickly. It is not about money. Dominic stepped closer, leaning in. The scent of expensive cologne and tobacco filled her senses. Those men, they were sent by a rival. Vincent Salvi. He broke the code. Families are off limits. Children are off limits. His eyes darkened, shifting from the grey of the sea to the black of the abyss. Because of you, Lily is alive. Because of you, I still have a heart beating in my chest. But because you saved her, you are now involved. Emma's heart rate monitor sped up. Beep, beep, beep. What do you mean? Salvi saw you, Dominic said grimly. His men saw you interfere. You aren't just a bystander anymore, Emma. You're the woman who defied Vincent Salvi, and until I end him, you are a target. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. I'm a second-grade teacher. I teach math and spelling. Not anymore, Dominic said. Until this war is over, you are under my protection. You can't go back to your apartment. You can't go back to the school. You can't kidnap me, Emma protested, trying to sit up despite the pain. I am not kidnapping you, Dominic said softly. He reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek before pulling back. I am shielding you, just like you shielded her. The door to the hospital room burst open. A man in a dark suit rushed in, looking frantic. Boss, the man panted, we have a problem. Salvi's men. They're in the lobby. They know she's here. Dominic's face transformed. The worried father vanished, replaced by the ruthless king of Chicago. He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a handgun, checking the chamber with a fluid, practiced motion. He looked at Emma, his eyes hard. Can you walk? I don't know, Emma stammered. Learn fast, Dominic said, extending a hand to her. Because we are leaving. Now. Emma had never seen a gun fired in anger before that day at the school. Now, Less than 24 hours later, she was watching a war zone erupt in a hospital corridor. Dominic Rossi moved with a terrifying efficiency. He didn't shout. He kicked the door of her room open, sweeping the hallway with his weapon. "Clear," he growled. He turned back, holstering the gun and scooping Emma up into his arms as if she weighed nothing. The sudden movement sent a jolt of fire through her shoulder, and she bit her lip to keep from screaming. "Hold on to me," Dominic commanded, striding into the hallway. "Do not let go." Emma buried her face in the crook of his neck, the scent of his cologne now mixed with the metallic tang of adrenaline. She could feel the hard muscles of his chest beneath his suit, tense and ready. They reached the service elevator, just as the glass doors at the end of the ward shattered. Two men in dark windbreakers sprinted through, raising weapons. "Get down!" shouted the bodyguard who had alerted them, a man named Leo. He provided cover fire, the deafening cracks echoing off the linoleum floors. Dominic didn't flinch. He used his body to shield Emma, turning his back to the threat as the elevator doors pinged open. He rushed inside, kicking the button for the parking garage. As the doors slid shut, Emma saw Leo take a hit to the leg but keep firing. "Your man," Emma gasped, her eyes wide. "Leo is a professional," Dominic said, though his jaw was clenched tight enough to snap. "He knows the protocol. My priority is you." The elevator descended, the silence heavy and suffocating. Emma looked up at Dominic. Up close, the lines of stress around his eyes were visible. He wasn't just a mob boss. He was a man holding a precarious world together. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm just a teacher." Dominic looked down, his stormy eyes softening for a fraction of a second. "You are the only person in 10 years who put someone else before themselves without asking for a price. That makes you rare, Emma, and it makes you mine to protect." The doors opened to the garage. A sleek, armored SUV was waiting, engine idling. Dominic deposited her in the back seat, sliding in next to her. The driver peeled out before the door was fully closed, tires screaming against the concrete. The drive was a blur of city lights and rain. Emma drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain meds wearing off. She felt Dominic's hand on her forehead, checking her temperature. She felt him adjusting the bandage on her shoulder, with surprisingly gentle fingers. "Stay with me, Emma," he murmured. "We are almost home." Home turned out to be a sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city, hidden behind 12-foot iron gates and dense forest. It looked less like a house and more like a modern fortress. Cameras tracked their arrival. Guards with assault rifles patrolled the perimeter. When the car stopped, Dominic carried her again, bypassing the grand foyer and taking her straight up a sweeping staircase to a master suite that smelled of mahogany and leather. He laid her on a massive bed with silk sheets. A doctor, an older man with a weary face, was already waiting. "Fix her, Doc," Dominic ordered, stepping back but refusing to leave the room. "And if she feels pain, you answer to me." As the doctor worked to clean and redress the wound, Emma watched Dominic. He was pacing by the window, on the phone, his voice a low, lethal murmur. "Find them," he was saying. "Burn Salvi's warehouses. I want him to know that he touched what belongs to me. No, not the girl. The teacher. Yes, she is under the Rossi banner now. Anyone who looks at her wrong loses their eyes." Emma shivered. "What belongs to me?" The possessiveness in his voice was terrifying, yet undeniably seductive. She was trapped in a golden cage, with a wolf pacing the door. 3 days passed in a haze of pain and luxury. Emma woke up to sunlight streaming through bulletproof glass. Her shoulder was stiff, but the burning agony had dulled to a throb. She sat up, taking in the room. It was bigger than her entire apartment. A tray of breakfast, fresh fruit, croissants and black coffee. sat on the bedside table with a note. Eat. Dominic. Emma pushed the covers back. She was wearing a silk nightgown she didn't recognize. She walked to the window, looking out over the grounds. Below, she saw a garden that looked manicured to within an inch of its life. And there, sitting on a stone bench, was Lily. The little girl was reading a book, a large guard standing a few feet away. Emma's heart leapt. She needed to see a friendly face. She found a robe draped over a chair and carefully pulled it on, navigating the massive hallway until she found the stairs. The house was silent, like a museum. But it was a watchful silence. She could feel eyes on her. She made it to the garden doors. The guard outside stepped in her path. "Miss Bennet," the guard said, nodding respectfully. "Mr. Rossi said you were to rest." "I need fresh air," Emma said, channeling her sternest teacher voice. "And I want to see my student." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. "Miss Bennet!" Lily screamed when she saw Emma, dropping her book and running across the grass. She stopped just short of hugging her, remembering the injury. "Daddy said you were sleeping. Are you fixed?" Emma smiled, sitting carefully on the bench. "I'm getting there, Lily. How are you?" "I'm bored," Lily huffed. "Daddy won't let me go to school. He says it's vacation time. But I know it's because of the bad men." Emma brushed a stray hair from Lily's face. "Your dad is just trying to keep you safe." "He's scary," Lily whispered, looking toward the house. "To everyone else. But not to me. And not to you, I think." "He's intense," Emma allowed. "He likes you," Lily said, matter-of-factly. "He checks on you every night. He stands by the door and watches you breathe." Emma felt a flush rise up her neck. She hadn't known that. "Is that so?" A deep voice rumbled from behind them. Emma jumped. Dominic was standing on the patio, wearing a casual grey t-shirt that clung to his chest and dark jeans. It was a stark contrast to the suits. He looked younger, more dangerous in a physical, raw way. "Daddy!" Lily giggled. Dominic walked over, resting a hand on Lily's head, but his eyes were locked on Emma. "You should be in bed." "I'm not an invalid," Emma said, meeting his gaze. "And I'm not a prisoner. I need to go home, Mr. Rossi. I have bills to pay. I have a cat." "Your cat has been retrieved. It is currently being fed fresh salmon in the kitchen by the cook," Dominic said smoothly. "Your bills have been paid. Your apartment lease has been terminated." Emma stood up, anger flaring hot and fast. "You terminated my lease? You had no right." "I had every right." Dominic stepped closer, encroaching on her personal space. "Your apartment was compromised. Salvi knows where you live. If I let you go back there, you will be dead within the hour. Do you understand? I did not save your life just to let you throw it away." "So what? I just live here now," Emma challenged, poking him in the chest with her good hand. "I'm just another possession in your collection." Dominic caught her hand. His grip was firm but not painful. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through her arm that had nothing to do with the gunshot wound. "You are not a possession, Emma," he said, his voice dropping to that husky register that made her knees weak. "You are a guest, an honored guest. And until Vincent Salvi is buried, you are not leaving this estate." He released her hand, but the warmth lingered. "Tonight?" Dominic continued, stepping back. "We have dinner. Downstairs. Wear something nice. I want to know who you are, Emma Bennet. Beyond the woman who jumps in front of bullets." As he walked away, Emma realized with a sinking feeling that she wasn't just afraid of the men trying to kill her. She was afraid of the man trying to save her. Because for the first time in her life, she felt safe and terrified all at once. The dress lay on the bed like a pool of liquid midnight. It was a deep navy velvet, off the shoulder, with a slit that went up to the thigh. It was elegant, expensive, and completely unlike anything Emma owned. She put it on, staring at herself in the full-length mirror. The dark fabric made her pale skin glow. The bandage on her shoulder was hidden by the sleeve. She looked like someone else. She looked like a woman who belonged in Dominic Rossi's world. When she descended the staircase, Dominic was waiting at the bottom. He was back in a suit, charcoal grey this time, 3-piece, impeccable. He was on the phone, but when he saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. He slowly lowered the phone, ending the call without saying goodbye. He watched her walk down, his eyes tracking every step. It wasn't a lecherous look. It was a look of reverence, like she was a rare piece of art he had just discovered. "You look—" Dominic paused, searching for the word. "Formidable." "I feel ridiculous," Emma admitted, reaching the bottom step. "This dress costs more than my car." "It suits you," Dominic said, offering her his arm. "Come, dinner is served." The dining room was dimly lit, a long table set for 2. The intimacy of it was unnerving. As they ate, a risotto that melted in her mouth, Dominic asked her questions. Not polite small talk, but real questions. He wanted to know why she became a teacher, what she feared, what she dreamed of. Emma found herself opening up. She told him about her parents dying when she was young, about growing up in foster care, about her desire to give children the stability she never had. "That is why you saved Lily," Dominic murmured, swirling his wine. "You saw yourself in her. Vulnerable." "I saw a child who needed help," Emma said. "It's simple." "Nothing is simple in my world," Dominic said darkly. "But you cut through the noise. You make me want to be a man who deserves to be saved." The air between them crackled with tension. Dominic leaned across the table, his hand reaching out to cover hers. "Emma," he began. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the dining room banged open. Leo, Dominic's head of security, strode in, his face pale. He was holding a tablet. "Boss," Leo said, urgency vibrating in his voice. "We have a situation. You need to see this." Dominic didn't let go of Emma's hand. "What is it?" "It's Salvi," Leo said. "He sent a message, a video." Dominic snatched the tablet. Emma watched his face. In an instant, the charming dinner companion vanished. The monster returned. His eyes went cold, his lips pulling back in a snarl of pure rage. He threw the tablet onto the table with a crash. Emma looked down at the screen. It was a video of an elderly woman tied to a chair in a dimly lit room. She was crying. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That's Mrs. Gable, my neighbor. She feeds my cat when I'm away." A voice came from the tablet. Vincent Salvi's voice, smooth and oily. "Hello, Dominic. I hear you have a new house guest, the brave school teacher. You hid her well, but you can't hide her whole world. Send her to me by midnight tomorrow. If you don't, well, let's just say, Mrs. Gable here is going to have a very bad accident. And after her, we have a list of every student in Miss Bennett's second-grade class." The video cut to black. Silence filled the room. Cold, horrifying silence. Emma stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. She was shaking. "He's going to hurt them. He's going to hurt my students because of me." "He is bluffing," Dominic said, standing up, but his voice lacked conviction. "He's not bluffing!" Emma screamed, tears streaming down her face. "You said he's a monster. He has my neighbor. He threatened the children." She looked at Dominic, horror dawning on her. "This is your fault. All of this. It's because of you." Dominic flinched as if she had slapped him. He walked around the table, trying to reach for her, but she backed away. "Don't touch me," Emma sobbed. "I have to go to him. I have to surrender." "No," Dominic roared, the sound shaking the walls. He grabbed her shoulders, holding her in place. "You are not going to him. He will kill you slowly, Emma. He wants to break me by breaking you." "I don't care about you," Emma yelled, though it was a lie. "I care about those kids. I have to go." "I won't let you," Dominic said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "I will burn this city to the ground before I let him touch a hair on your head. Or the children." He turned to Leo. "Call the crew," Dominic ordered. "Every soldier we have. We aren't waiting for a peace talk. We aren't negotiating." He looked back at Emma, his eyes burning with a terrifying promise. "Tonight, we go to war, and you are coming with me." "What?" Emma breathed. "I am not leaving you here alone," Dominic said, pulling a gun from his waistband and checking the clip. "If Salvi wants you, he can come and get you. But he'll have to go through me first." The convoy of black SUVs cut through the rain-slicked streets of Chicago like a funeral procession for the living. Inside the lead vehicle, the air was thick with tension. Emma sat next to Dominic, her hands trembling in her lap. She wasn't trembling from fear anymore. She was trembling from a strange, cold resolve. She had changed out of the velvet gown. Now she wore tactical pants and a Kevlar vest that Dominic had forced onto her. It was heavy, restricting her breathing, a constant reminder of the world she had stumbled into. "We are 5 minutes out," Dominic said, his voice void of emotion. He was checking a semi-automatic pistol, the metallic click-clack of the slide, the only sound in the car. "What is the plan?" Emma asked. She surprised herself with the steadiness of her voice. Dominic looked at her. The streetlights flickered over his face, illuminating the hard set of his jaw. "My men will breach the perimeter. We create chaos. In the confusion, Leo's team extracts your neighbor. You stay in the car." "No," Emma said. Dominic paused. He turned his head slowly. "Excuse me." "I said no," Emma repeated, locking eyes with the most dangerous man in the city. "Mrs. Gable is 70 years old. She has a heart condition. If men with guns burst in screaming, she could have a heart attack before you even get her untied. She knows me. She trusts me. I need to be there to keep her calm." "It is too dangerous," Dominic growled. "You said you'd protect me," Emma challenged. "Do you doubt your ability to do that?" A heavy silence filled the car. The driver kept his eyes glued to the road, terrified to witness the boss being questioned. Dominic stared at Emma, searching her face for any sign of panic. He found none. He found only the same fierce determination that had made her shield his daughter. "You stay behind me," Dominic said finally, his voice low and rough. "If I move, you move. If I stop, you stop. If I tell you to run, you run, and you do not look back. Do you understand?" "I understand," Emma nodded. The car slowed. They were at the industrial docks, a maze of rusted shipping containers and towering cranes. It was a graveyard of steel, shadowed and ominous. "It's a trap, you know," Emma whispered as the car stopped. "I know," Dominic replied, unbuckling his seatbelt. "But traps are only effective if the prey is unaware. Tonight, I am not the prey. I am the hunter." He opened the door. The rain had turned into a deluge. The assault began not with a shout, but with a silence. Dominic's men moved like ghosts, neutralizing the outer guards with terrifying efficiency. Emma followed close behind Dominic, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. They moved through the maze of containers. Ahead, a large warehouse loomed, light spilling from its cracked windows. Suddenly, a floodlight snapped on, blinding them. Crack! A gunshot rang out, sparking off the metal container inches from Emma's head. "Contact!" Dominic roared, shoving Emma down behind a stack of crates. The night exploded. Automatic gunfire erupted from the warehouse catwalks. Dominic returned fire, his movements fluid and precise. He wasn't just shooting, he was conducting a symphony of violence. "Stay down!" he yelled over the noise, reloading his weapon in a blur of motion. "Mrs. Gable!" Emma screamed, pointing toward a side door of the warehouse that had been left unguarded. "They're distracted! We have to go in!" Dominic looked at the suppressing fire his men were laying down. Then, at the side door, he grabbed Emma's hand. "Run!" They sprinted across the open gap, bullets kicking up water and concrete around their heels. They crashed through the side door, tumbling onto the concrete floor of the warehouse. Inside, the noise was deafening. But Emma's eyes immediately locked onto the center of the room. Tied to a chair, gagged and looking terrified, was Mrs. Gable. Standing behind her, holding a pistol to her temple, was Vincent Solvay. He was a short, stocky man, with a face like a bulldog, and a suit that looked too shiny under the industrial lights. "Hold your fire!" Salvey screamed, his voice cracking. "Or the old bat dies!" Dominic raised a fist. Instantly, his men, who had breached the main entrance, froze. The shooting stopped, replaced by the heavy echo of breathing and the drum of rain on the tin roof. Dominic stood up slowly, pulling Emma up with him, but keeping her behind his back. "It's over, Vincent," Dominic said, his voice calm, carrying effortlessly across the cavernous space. "Let the women go. This is between us." Salvey laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "You think you can just walk in here, Rossi? You think you own this city?" He pressed the gun harder into Mrs. Gable's temple. The old woman whimpered. "I don't think," Dominic said, taking a step forward. "I know." "Stay back!" Salvey shrieked. "I'll do it, I swear I'll do it!" Emma peeked around Dominic's shoulder. She saw Salvey's hand shaking. He was scared. A scared man with a gun was the most dangerous thing in the world. But she also saw something else. Above Salvey, hanging from a rusted chain on a crane hook, was a massive pallet of wooden crates. The cable looked frayed, old, and the control box for the crane was on a pillar just 10 feet to their right. "Vincent," Dominic said, taking another step. "Look at me. Ignore them. Look at me." He was drawing Salvey's focus, making himself the target. It was the same thing Emma had done at the school. He was shielding at them. Emma realized in that moment that she loved him. Not the idea of him, but the man who would walk into fire for the people he claimed, and she wasn't going to let him die. The standoff was a taut wire, ready to snap. Salvey was sweating, his eyes darting between Dominic and the encircling Rossi soldiers. "You took everything from me," Salvey spat. "My territory, my contracts." "You took them from yourself when you started selling to kids," Dominic replied coldly. "I told you, no children." "Business is business," Salvey yelled. "And now I'm going to take what you love. I see her behind you, Rossi. The teacher. Pretty thing. Shame she has to bleed." Dominic's body went rigid. Emma could feel the heat radiating off him, the pure, unadulterated rage. He was going to move, and when he did, Salvey would shoot Mrs. Gable. Emma had to act. She scanned the distance to the control box. 10 feet. If she ran, Salvey would see her. She needed a distraction. "Hey!" Emma shouted, stepping out from behind Dominic. "Emma, no!" Dominic hissed, trying to grab her, but she sidestepped him. She walked forward, her hands raised. "You want me?" Emma called out, her voice echoing. "I'm the one you want, right? The one who embarrassed your men at the school?" Salvey blinked, surprised by her boldness. Smart girl. Stupid but smart. "Let Mrs. Gable go," Emma said, walking slowly toward the right, away from Dominic, drawing Salvey's gun toward her. "She's just a neighbor. She doesn't matter. I'm the one Dominic cares about. Trade her for me." "Emma, stop it!" Dominic roared, his composure cracking. "Shut up, Rossi," Salvi yelled, pointing the gun at Emma now. "Come here, teacher. Let's see how brave you are." Emma kept walking, her eyes fixed on Salvi, but her peripheral vision locked on the control box. She was 5 feet away. "You know," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly, "I teach 2nd grade. Do you know what the first rule of my classroom is?" "I don't care," Salvi sneered. "The rule is—" Emma lunged, not toward Salvi, but toward the pillar. "Clean up your mess." She slammed her fist into the rusted red button on the control panel. The gears of the overhead crane ground together with a screech of metal on metal. The chain holding the massive pallet above Salvi snapped. Salvi looked up, his eyes widening in horror. Crash! The pallet of heavy wooden crates thundered down. Salvi tried to dive, but he was too slow. The crates smashed into the floor, collapsing the platform he was standing on and burying him under a ton of timber and debris. The impact shook the entire building. Dust billowed up in a choking cloud. Mrs. Gable, miraculously untouched in the center of the debris field where the crates had formed a tent, sat frozen in her chair. Silence returned to the warehouse. "Secure the area," Dominic barked, breaking the spell. He was at Emma's side in an instant. He grabbed her face with both hands, his eyes wild, scanning her for injuries. "Are you insane?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "You could have been killed." "I calculated the trajectory," Emma gasped, adrenaline crashing through her system. "Physics, it's part of the curriculum." Dominic stared at her. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to shake her. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled her into him, crushing her against his chest, burying his face in her hair. "You reckless, brilliant, terrifying woman," he breathed into her ear. "Don't you ever do that again." Emma wrapped her arms around him, feeling the rapid thud of his heart against hers. "I can't promise that." Leo and the other men were already pulling Mrs. Gable from the chair. The older woman was shaken but unharmed. She looked at Emma, then at Dominic, and raised a trembling eyebrow. "Emma," Mrs. Gable croaked, "you have terrible taste in men, but he certainly dresses well." Emma laughed, a sound that was half sob. Dominic pulled back, keeping one arm possessively around her waist. He looked at the pile of rubble where Salvi lay. "It is done," Dominic said to his men. "Clean this up. The war is over." He looked down at Emma. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. But as he looked at her, standing there in a bulletproof vest with dust on her face, he knew that his life had fundamentally changed. He had gone to war to save a teacher. He was returning home with a queen. 2 weeks had passed since the night the warehouse collapsed, and winter had finally tightened its grip on Chicago. A thick blanket of silence had fallen over the city, muffled by 6 inches of fresh snow. Inside the Rossi estate, the silence was different. It wasn't the silence of fear that had permeated the halls when Emma first arrived, bleeding and confused. It was a comfortable domestic silence, the kind that exists between people who have seen the worst of each other and survived. Emma stood in the expansive kitchen, the smell of cinnamon and burnt sugar hanging heavy in the air. Her left arm, no longer in a sling but still stiff when the weather turned cold, rested on the granite island. "I think," Lily said, peering critically at a tray of misshapen dough lumps, "that we used too much butter." Emma laughed, wiping a smudge of flour from the little girl's nose. "There is no such thing as too much butter, Lily. That's a scientific fact." "Is it?" A deep voice rumbled from the doorway. Emma turned. Dominic was leaning against the doorframe. He had traded his tactical gear and 3-piece suits for a black cashmere sweater and dark jeans. He looked rested, the dark circles under his eyes finally fading, but there was a heaviness in his posture today that Emma hadn't seen since the hospital. "Daddy!" Lily squealed, holding up a wooden spoon like a scepter. "We are making victory cookies. Emma says they will taste like clouds." Dominic's mouth twitched in a ghost of a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He walked over, kissing the top of Lily's head. "They look delicious, Principessa. But you need to go upstairs now. Mrs. Higgins is waiting to read you a story." "But the cookies aren't done," Lily protested. "Emma will save them for you," Dominic said, his voice gentle but firm, the tone of a father who was not asking. "Go on now." Lily looked between the two adults, sensing the sudden shift in atmospheric pressure. She nodded solemnly, slid off her stool, and hugged Emma's waist. "Don't leave," Lily whispered into Emma's apron. It was quiet, but Emma heard it. "I'm just right here," Emma assured her, smoothing the girl's hair. When Lily was gone, the kitchen felt suddenly vast and cold. The warmth of the oven seemed to dissipate. Dominic didn't speak immediately. He walked to the window, looking out at the grey sky and the iron gates that separated his world from the rest of society. "Mrs. Gable called," Dominic said, his back to her. "She is settling into the condo in Boca Raton. She asked if you were eating enough." "She worries," Emma said, untying her apron. Her hands were trembling slightly. She knew this conversation was coming. She had felt it building for days, like static electricity before a lightning strike. "Dominic, what is wrong?" He turned around. In his hand, he held a thick manila envelope. He placed it on the kitchen island, right next to the tray of unbaked cookies. The contrast was jarring, the symbol of domestic normalcy next to the inevitable business of the underworld. "The war with Salvi is over," Dominic began, his voice devoid of inflection. "His territories have been absorbed. The other families have fallen in line. The threat is gone." "I know," Emma said, stepping closer. "We won." "We?" Dominic looked at her, his grey eyes darkening. "There is no we in this life, Emma. There are targets, and there are shooters. You were never meant to be, either." He tapped the envelope with a manicured finger. "Inside this envelope is a passport," he said. "It is real government issue, under the name Emma Miller. There is a bank account linked to it with $5 million, and there is a signed contract for a teaching position at an international school in Geneva, Switzerland. They are expecting you next week." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. The room seemed to tilt. "Switzerland?" "It is safe," Dominic said, reciting the words as if he had rehearsed them 1,000 times to convince himself. "It is clean. The school is prestigious. You will have a view of the Alps. You will have students who worry about grades, not drive-by shootings. You will have a life, Emma. A real life." "I have a life," Emma said, her voice rising. "I have a life here." "No," Dominic cut her off, his voice cracking with a sudden, raw intensity. He stepped around the island, invading her space, looming over her. "You have a trauma bond here. You have adrenaline and fear. You look at me, and you see the man who saved you. But I am not a savior, Emma. I am the man who put you in that hospital bed. I am the reason you have a scar on your shoulder." "I don't care about the scar," Emma argued. "I do," Dominic roared. The sound bounced off the tiled walls. He took a ragged breath, running a hand through his hair. "I look at you, and I see how close I came to destroying the only pure thing I have ever touched. I cannot do it again. I cannot wake up every morning wondering if today is the day my enemies decide to get to me through you." He picked up the envelope and held it out to her. His hand was steady, but his eyes were pleading. "Take it. Please. Go to Geneva. Find a man who is kind. Find a man who doesn't own a gun. Be happy, Emma. That is the only payment I will accept for saving my daughter." Emma looked at the envelope. It was heavy. It contained freedom. It contained safety. It contained a future where she would never again have to smell gunpowder or wash blood out of her clothes. It was the sensible choice. It was the choice the old Emma Bennett, the woman in the beige cardigan, would have taken in a heartbeat. But she wasn't that woman anymore. That woman had died the moment she threw herself over a child on a rainy sidewalk. Emma reached out and took the envelope. Dominic closed his eyes, a muscle feathering in his jaw. He looked like a man who had just severed his own limb to survive. "The car is waiting to take you to the airfield. You should pack." Emma weighed the package in her hands. Then she walked past him. "Emma!" Dominic turned, confused. She walked out of the kitchen and into the living room, where a fire was roaring in the stone hearth. Dominic followed her, his steps heavy. "Emma, the car is out front," he said. Emma stood before the fireplace. The heat flushed her cheeks. She looked at the flames, dancing and consuming the wood, just as this new world had consumed her old identity. "You're right, Dominic," she said softly, not turning around. "You're a dangerous man. A monster to some. And this house, it's a fortress. It's a cage." "Yes," Dominic agreed, his voice hollow. "It is. And Geneva sounds lovely," Emma continued. "Safe. Quiet. Predictable." She turned to face him. He was standing 10 feet away, looking at her as if she were a ghost he was already mourning. "But there's one problem with your plan," Emma said. "What is that?" "I don't want safe," Emma said. Her voice was clear, ringing with a newfound steel. "I spent 26 years being safe. I spent my whole life coloring inside the lines, waiting for something to happen. And then I met you. And then I met Lily." She held up the envelope. "You think you're protecting me by sending me away," she said. "But you're just protecting yourself. You're scared, Dominic Rossi. The King of Chicago is scared of a school teacher." "I am scared of getting you killed," he snapped. "Then protect me," Emma challenged. "Do your job. Be the monster for everyone else, so you can be the man for me. But don't you dare decide my future for me." With a flick of her wrist, Emma tossed the envelope into the fire. Dominic gasped. He lunged forward as if to grab it, but it was too late. The heavy paper caught instantly. The passport, the money, the contract, it all curled and blackened, consumed by the orange tongues of flame. "Emma!" Dominic stared at the fire, stunned. "Do you have any idea what you just did? There is no going back now. I erased your old life. That was your only way out." "I don't want a way out," Emma said, stepping into the space he had vacated. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling the frantic, hammering rhythm of his heart through the cashmere. "I want to stay. I want to bake cookies with Lily. I want to mark your papers when you try to run the city. And I want to be with you." Dominic looked down at her, his expression shattering. The walls he had built, the coldness, the distance, the brutality, crumbled in the face of her defiance. "I will never be a normal man," he warned, his voice rough with emotion. "I will never be able to give you peace." "I don't need peace," Emma whispered, rising on her tiptoes. "I need you." Dominic let out a sound that was half groan, half prayer. He wrapped his arms around her waist, lifting her off the ground and crushing her against him. His mouth found hers in a searing, desperate kiss that tasted of smoke and surrender. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a claiming. It was a promise written in fire. Emma clung to him, her fingers tangling in his dark hair. In his arms, Amidst the shadows of his empire, she finally felt something she had never felt in the safety of her classroom. She felt alive. When they finally broke apart, breathless and flushed, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "You are a fool, Emma Bennett," he murmured, a possessive glint returning to his eyes. "But you are my fool now." "And you're a mess, Dominic Rossi," she smiled, tracing the line of his jaw. "But I think I can fix you." "I pity the world," Dominic chuckled darkly, pulling her closer as the fire crackled behind them. "They thought the Rossi crime family was dangerous before. Now, we have a school teacher calling the shots." Emma rested her head on his shoulder, watching the snow fall outside the window. The cold world was out there, full of threats and enemies, but inside there was warmth. There was family. And for the first time in her life, Emma Bennett knew exactly where she belonged. She hadn't just saved a student. She had chosen a kingdom. And that is the story of Emma and Dominic. From a rainy sidewalk to the highest echelons of the Chicago underworld, it proves that love can bloom in the darkest of places if you're brave enough to fight for it. Emma didn't just survive the mafia, she tamed it. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more dramatic romance stories like this one. What did you think of Emma's choice at the end? Would you have taken the ticket to Switzerland, or would you have stayed with the mob boss? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. I post new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.